Welcome to Founders in Biotech. In this podcast, biotech entrepreneurs share their founders' journey and scientific achievements. I'm your host, Serghei Glinca. Today's guest is CARLO BERTOZZI. CARLO started his biotech journey as the founder of G7 Therapeutics, which was a spin-off from the University of Zurich. The company developed a technology for stabilization of G protein-coupled receptors called GPCRs. GPCRs are a superfamily of receptors linked to a wide range of human diseases. G7 Therapeutics was acquired by Sosei Heptares in 2016, but CARLO didn't rest. He co-founded Acthera Therapeutics in 2019, and he is an active mentor in the startup community. He also co-founded inCephalo, where he is currently active as CEO. With inCephalo, the team is striving to change the landscape of therapeutic options for brain tumors. Thank you so much, CARLO, for joining us today on Founders in Biotech.
Well, thank you, Serghei, for having me.
We would like to learn more about you. Tell us a bit about your experience with education before starting your own first company.
Sure, happy to say. Well, I started interdisciplinary natural science at ETH in Zurich. A combination between biology, chemistry, and physics. Before then, actually moving to Australia, where after my master thesis, I did a little bit of a sabbatical at the University of Queensland. Learning a different kind of life-work balance, let's call it like that. Afterwards, I went back to the University of Zurich, where I did my PhD in biochemistry, focusing on X-ray, crystallography, and structure-based understanding of how drugs interact with membrane proteins. And that's also how I got in touch with the guys from G7 Therapeutics, and everything evolved basically.
What inspired you to think about how drugs interact with proteins? Was it you stumbled in this research area? Was it a choice?
Yes, it was a choice. Truth be told, I did my master thesis in a highly competitive lab at Nenad Ban again. I mean, his work, among others, received the Nobel Prize, not him himself, but his boss. But it was a very kind of intense work where you did a lot of trying to understand how ribosomes are interacting and maybe even antibiotics and how we can stop translation. And that kind of was very inspiring to use the application of our knowledge to create new drugs. And that kind of was the first step towards where I started realizing what I wanted to do in the future. So I thought that, well, a PhD, instead of doing some kind of basic research, why don't we apply some of the understanding? I mean, that was early days back in 2010. Structure-based drug design for membrane proteins isn't where it is today. Yeah, but it was because, I mean, we were working with prokaryotic homologs and not as we are doing today with eukaryotic or even human proteins. But nevertheless, I mean, it's just really cool when you can learn from a structure and see how molecules are interacting with the proteins and maybe see potential how it actually could have therapeutic effect.
All right. Yeah, it totally resonates with me. The experience when people have data, but they don't know how molecules are bounded, and they see the structures like, wow, now I understand all the data that I have.
Well, so it's a snapshot.
it's a snapshot, yes, but still, there's this experience to see what is actually happening is a great human experience for me, at least, to see how scientists are excited about this data. So we're talking about 2010. So GPCRs have had challenges to in science to get their structures. Can we take a brief deep dive into the tech? What were the challenges? What has changed in the industry, and how G7 the journey with G7 Therapeutics fits into this let's say transformation in the industry?
Yeah, more than happy to. I mean, truth be told, the idea behind G7 Therapeutics wasn't mine. I was just basically lucky to be at the right time at the right place, which very often happens in entrepreneurship. So G7 Therapeutics, I mean, one of the biggest issues with G protein coupled receptors, they're inherently unstable once you remove them from their natural lipidic environment. So what can you do? How can you stabilize them? And actually, a postdoc in Andreas Blücken's lab developed a very cool idea about using directed evolution, meaning instead of us trying to create mutations, change kind of the protein in a smart way, why don't we let nature evolve? So we basically added a ligand that had a fluorescent dye to it, and then would do random mutagenesis on the entire protein, everything. And then by making sure it still binds its natural ligand, we kind of made sure that the protein fold resembled still what it's supposed to be. And that basically was a cornerstone. We then add on additional expert, we evolutionized basically the technology from bacterial evolution to eukaryotic evolution. And that was the idea. I mean, really making these very hard to kind of create a structure out of these inherently unstable proteins, making them stable for structure-based drug design. In the meantime, obviously, there are a lot of new technologies coming in, such as cryo-EM, that allow you to much faster produce data, but also conformational locks to the use of nanobodies, among others. So it's really like it opened a huge field, which not only G7 can take credit.
Yeah, but luck prefers the prepared man. They're saying, I've seen a presentation after G7 was acquired. They clicked one structure after another, and it kind of showed when you have a structure, you can do structure-based drug design, and that kind of a huge contribution also to the industry and development of therapeutics. So
yeah, absolutely.
But you stumble into this idea. What inspired you to say, okay, I'm a PhD or postdoc? What was were you a PhD or postdoc at this stage?
I was a PhD. PhD. Yeah.
What inspired you to say, okay, let's start a company?
I was very naive, telling you the truth. I think it's just back in the days, again, 2010, 2012, it must have been over 10 years ago. Just the idea of creating your own company, of being able to push something yourself where you see the scientific impact and you have a vision how you can use the scientific impact and create something even bigger to it, and maybe even at some point in time bringing it into the patient. And actually some of our molecules that are created out of the structures that we created at G7 Therapeutics are currently in clinical trials. And I mean, just that idea is amazing. So it was, but truth be told, I was just pure idealism and the idea of creating something.
Yeah, but this is what they say. If the entrepreneurs knew how hard it is, they wouldn't start it. But
I can fully agree with that.
It's part of the journey, and you have not only the business part, you have kind of building the company, but also mostly it's a science part that has to be built. Okay, but then we actually met when you were building the company, and I remember you're very, very excited about the field and what you're saying. It's kind of it was you were emanating, it was kind of contagious, this energy of creating something great. Let's switch up to inCephalo. How you didn't rest after G7 was acquired, and you're working probably on another idea. What has driven you to continue this entrepreneurship journey and build another company? And what drives you? I mean, it's hard, but what drives you in creating an inCephalo?
Again, when I started G7 Therapeutics, pure idealism and the idea of creating something. And I think as you progress, as you learn, other things become more important. And I think in specifically for inCephalo, there is a clear focus on patients, and well, I have a personal motivation on it. I mean, the mentor of my first biotech company, G7, he actually died from a cancer that developed in his brain, and that kind of triggered something in me and said, well, I'm in this great ecosystem where you see so much innovation. How can I add to that? So there is a clear switch in mindset, whereas now a clear mission-driven company, and that's inCephalo, where we really try to make a difference in patients with brain cancer.
That's super powerful. To have this mission. All right. But from let's switch to from your experience, and actually in the industry there are a lot of in biotech you meet a lot of mission-driven founders who have the focus on patients' development of therapeutics. And what would you recommend to scientists who would like to enter or have the idea of entering biotech with a company the typical question, three qualities that are important?
The most important one is resilience. I mean, people will tell you no way too many times, or things will go bad way too many times. I mean, after all, in a startup, you are your own motivator. There's no one coming to, yeah, let's do it. No, after all, I mean, you need to have the passion, the resilience to really push it through and to believe in it. And sometimes even be a little bit stubborn and idealistic. I think that the other one is also compassion. And compassion, not only for patients among others, but also for your coworkers and employees. Because I mean, sharing with you the story of my first biotech company, I was kind of this, I want to do this, and I had so much energy, and I got personally offended if coworkers didn't share my vision and my passion. And I think there you need to be compassionate in a way that you understand. I mean, these people, their life's journey is not your startup. Well, if you only want to have these employees, then you should talk to them early on. But I mean, you need to understand that the people around you have different goals and different visions, and that's okay. So if you're compassionate with them and work in a strategic way where everyone benefits, I think that brings everyone forward. And that should be one of the key attributes that every entrepreneur should have. And the last one, I think sharing. You should always go out and share your story. No one is waiting for you, but you really have to go out and share it with people, talk to people, get feedback, even though some feedback won't be great and it will hurt. But together with the compassion and the resilience that you have, you will push it forward.
Yeah. I love it. Especially the differences within the team. I think it's a process, right? It's a process to realize not everyone is. I heard it somewhere. Someone saying someone told me that other people are different. I had a conversation with it. It was a tech founder, and she said someone told me the people within your team are not the same as you are, and it was kind of this enlightenment. And then you kind of how did you manage to you realize not everyone is the way you are. How did you manage for yourself as a founder, to build this complementarity within the team? What was your internal process?
I mean, there are two aspects to it. I mean, one aspect is kind of the motivational part. I mean, not everyone can be as compassionate and motivated about your vision and your goals among others. And I think that was a very tough learning process for me to understand the drivers of the individuals among others. And about the complementarity of skills, I think this is essential. We go out there with the understanding that we don't understand everything. And if you want to build a company, you don't want to build it with a circle of friends. You want to get, if possible, the best people in the field for the specific areas that you want to work with to join in. And for that, there is a pure requirement to get different people on board with different backgrounds, with different mindsets, among others. But personally, I think once you have accomplished the first step, understanding that people are different, as you, Serghei, were just sharing, the next step is really bringing other people in that are smarter than you and are subject matter experts in other areas than you. But only that will bring the company and make the step towards making it exceptional.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just connecting to what you said, going out and talking, getting feedback. Would you say that one has to be aware that it has to be some kind of uncomfortable? So, like talking to others, getting feedback might be not perfect, right? They might destroy you, which is good if you build on this feedback and improve yourself, and also within the team. Like, would you say that was a bit uncomfortable, but you learned how to deal with this and develop some kind of not skin, but the skill how to manage it?
Yeah, I mean, you only learn if you try. You only learn if you allow yourself to fail. But yeah, I mean, go out there, talk to people. You will not imagine how open this world is. I mean, a few years back, I met the former CSO of Johnson & Johnson, and it just happens in a meeting, and you need to be prepared, and you need to have your thoughts together, and he will ask you, what do you need? How can I help you? And people are out there to help you. And it takes time, and it will hurt, as you were saying. Some people will destroy you. Some people will tell you it's stupid, but some people are out there to help you.
Yep.
So if you don't keep on trying, then you won't. And again, no one is waiting for you.
Yeah, you have to do it yourself. Great. Like there is one thing that I observe in, and you're involved also in like startup ecosystem, and there is a lot of advice that I see that is coming from the tech scene and that is transferred to life science and biotech, which I think is a bad idea because how products are developed in biotech compared to tech are different. Like, could you like comment on that?
I assume you're going towards like minimal viable products and just to test the market early and then reiterate, or?
Yeah, so in tech you don't know the product, but in biotech you actually can pretty well define what is the final product. It's just getting the science to work towards this product is super hard and not really predictable.
I think yes and no, telling you the truth. I might have a different opinion on it. The science, the underlying science is very complicated, and you will have to take assumptions at some point in time. And if you want to have everything completely right, you will never create a company after all. So, I mean, that's very often in biotech, there is this kind of struggle between the scientists and more the business vision driven people. At some point in time, you need to bring it to the next level and bring it into the clinic. But nevertheless, I mean, you define a product, you do a lot of experiments, and it costs you a lot. But what I have seen very often in companies is that the primary disease indication changes. The biology might be all set and everything, but you need to be strategic to think about where is the most efficient way that I can create most value for the patient, but also for the business side, which disease indication, because the underlying mechanism, biology, might be very similar in different disease indication. You might want to go first in a rare disease to prove it in a more kind of the de-risking part, technological or biological de-risking in a more cost and time efficient way. And then you want to go into the larger disease indications. And sometimes it makes more sense to go into the larger disease indications because of comparable deal values, because of value inflection points. I think this is something that you will only learn along the progress of your compound and while talking to clinicians. So yes, they're getting feedback and pivoting, I think, is important, but the early stage, developing your product, you cannot start with a semi-finished product and then go out and then unless you're in a field, for example, like non-viral gene therapy that is very hyped, where it's only about showing preclinical proof of concept, then you can go with unfinished products because you just want to validate the technology in a comparable and translatable model.
Okay, so you would say that one has to be strategic and clear about kind of the first, the primary indication that you're going for to prove the concept, or like selecting multiple outcomes.
So in a way, I think what I've learned along the years is the value creation path is detrimental. Understanding the field that you're in and which are the value inflection points. Meaning, if you're in a field, again, non-viral gene therapy, where there's, again, we're moving into that field with the RNA, where there's this boost, then maybe your key value inflection point is preclinical. In other areas where you want to first prove the biology, you might have to go into a phase 1 clinical trial in patients, for example, in a rare cancer disease, among others. So I think understanding the value creation path allows you to better understand how to position your product and what kind of product you need to develop. You need a minimal viable product. If it's just proof of concept of the technology in preclinical part, which is very time and cost efficient, or you want to have the technological de-risking in humans, then you can also work with a minimal viable product because it's the technological validation, not the biological de-risking. So it really depends. I wouldn't say it's all wrong what the tech guys are doing, but I think here in biotech, because of the costs and the times, we need to be very strategic.
Yeah, I understood. That's great. That's great advice. I think understanding value inflection point for a certain industry, for certain technology is very helpful. Okay, so I would like just to switch to and ask you to share your energy and excitement and passion for entrepreneurship in biotech. And let's start with a question. I mean, failure is part of the success. Could you share one of your greatest failures and how these failures helped you actually to succeed in business?
Yeah, I think what probably a lot of people don't know is that the first company, G7 Therapeutics, that I sold, I afterwards became CEO of the Swiss subsidiary. It was called Sosei Heptares Switzerland afterwards. We actually liquidated the companies a few years back. And while that's nothing I could do, because I mean it was a stock listed company and there was a restructuring, so there's not much I could do. But I think later on we kind of tried to buy the technology and the company back, and we did not succeed. And the reason why we did not succeed was because the motivation wasn't the right one. Back then, I tried to do it because I wanted to kind of create or save the environment that we created. We had a lot of great employees, and I just kind of wanted to keep that going. But I didn't have a clear vision in mind. And that's obviously why it failed. I mean, it failed because you cannot just keep something alive because you like it, let's call it like that. There needs to be a business behind it. There needs to be a clear vision behind it. Because again, investors, but also your employees and everyone is buying into the vision. Where do you want to go? How do you want to accomplish it? And what is the goal where you're going towards? And I think that was one of the key learnings for myself is to just really think about the vision first. What do you want to achieve with that company? Along the way, you will pivot. Along the way, you will go, I don't know what, and you will accomplish small little goals, but your vision needs to be set in stone. Or at least clarified.
That's super helpful. Yeah, we lose sight of the vision and direction caught up in things we like. I like that you mentioned it because we tend to do things that we like and sometimes forget the vision. And going back to the team dynamics, maybe other people like different stuff, and then it's kind of bring all together towards one mission. So would you say that this is number one advice that you would recommend to scientists and potential founders, that they have keep in mind the vision. And maybe you have some advice for them how you develop the vision for yourself, how it is created within yourself, and how do you communicate it? You said clear vision.
I truly believe that a vision allows you to align everyone and bring people together. And I mean, that's part of the communication as every leader needs to do. I mean, you need to communicate and you need to share kind of to the people, where do you want to go, and if they want to come on that journey with you. And as you were saying, way too often we're caught up with day-to-day business and we don't really think about where do we want to go, because we just have to one or the other fire that we need to extinguish in the meantime. How do you find your vision? I mean, for the company at inCephalo, I think the vision was clearly set in stone when we created the company. We got 6 co-founders together that had similar experiences, that had this kind of personal motivation to make a difference in patients with brain cancer. And the vision has stayed ever since. So I think just going into yourself and thinking about what drives you and what you want to accomplish with the technology that you have. It could also be that your vision is just to sell it as early as possible, and then I go for the next company. That's absolutely fine. And then you can align people, because, I mean, people might be motivated to do so, to learn along the way and then go into something new. I think as long as you stay true to yourself, you're transparent with the people around you, you will create great teams and will be successful.
Yeah, great. I'm happy you said that a vision could be to sell a company, which is a driver and kind of determines the day-to-day business. It shouldn't be always like some tremendous vision, which might overwhelm like founders who start who say you have to have the vision for 10 years, and maybe it's not the case, and you lose your authenticity because of that. So what do you see like in the industry? Which sectors are currently growing?
It's difficult at the moment. Let's call it like that. I mean, the IPO market has closed for biotech. Maybe some are still trying and some will still succeed. I think biotech is a bit in a base right now. Nevertheless, you have a lot of VCs that are full, have their pockets full. I mean, you see one fund after the other claiming they have even another closing and another oversubscribed closing. I would say it's always difficult. I think the smart VCs have great biology. They will love it if they can see the potential, even if it's early stage, that it is a new approach, that it is different, that it's not incremental. Very often you will find someone. Yes, there are investors that will go into the field of incremental optimizations where, because they just are a little bit more risk averse. Others will go a bit more in crazy ideas. No, I think it's actually quite booming in the biotech field. Early stage might be a bit difficult, but once you have established yourself or have something really cool, I think in the end, biology always wins. The one thing that I can say is single asset companies are a bit more difficult to finance at the moment than platforms, but it also depends on the disease indication, among others. Areas that are very hot at the moment are like CNS diseases.
Yeah.
Even though they're very difficult.
Yeah. Super difficult. Very interesting that you mentioned platform versus single assets. Interesting. Thanks. One last question. What is your wish for future of entrepreneurship in biotech?
A community. I think we have local communities. We are trying, but there is not a real like community where people just can be part of it. I can't just go now to Berlin and I'm part of a community. It will most likely take me a while to find out whom to contact, etc. I think the people are there, the network is there, but there is just not a real community, at least here in Europe, I would say. If you go to the Boston area, there is more of a community. If you go to the San Francisco area or Bay Area, there is more of a community. I think it's just entrepreneurship or business in general depends on your network, on your community, because only within a community that helps each other we can drive.
Yeah. So thanks for joining the podcast, because one of the drivers of this is to help the community connect and grow together. And talking about connecting, what is the best way to reach out to you and connect?
Look me up on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest thing.
All right, we'll make a link to LinkedIn. All right, Carlo, thanks for being with us on Founders in Biotech podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thanks.
And keep up the good work and creating a community.
Thanks a lot. Would like to thank CSL Behring for supporting the initiative and making this possible. Do you want to raise awareness of cutting-edge science, emerging technologies, and innovation? Please do reach out to us and visit foundersinbiotech.com. See you on the next episode.